What is up, everybody? Oh, hi, man. I am so excited. Welcome to Blue Node Lounge. With me today is Chip, or as you know him on X as NFT Ranching. Chip, welcome to the show, man. I cannot express how excited I am to talk to you.
Hey, good morning, buddy. I really enjoyed walking down that hallway and looking at all the art you got on the walls just now. I was thinking you almost are missing a piece in there.
Oh, dude, you know me. Like, if you're talking about a Sheeple, I know you only have drawn 4 right now, right? Or have you drawn more, but you've only inscribed 4?
I've only inscribed 4, but I've got.
Oh, that's right, because I made the joke. It's 10, but I said this one goes to 11. I'm like, maybe you go 11.
I was going to say at some point here we can look at some of these. I'll show you one though that I'm working on right now. This is what I'm working on currently.
Oh my God! Hold on. All right, put it a little more in front of your face. There you go. Oh my gosh, that one is awesome. This is so exciting. So for those who don't know, actually everyone probably knows Chip way more than they know me, but Chip has obviously been in the Bitcoin ecosystem a long time. He's been in the Ordinals ecosystem since the very beginning. And it's funny because Chip and I have probably been at all the same conferences together, but we actually... I know we've shaken hands and just say, hey, nice to meet you, but we've never had a good conversation. So, you know, I know you're friends with Donnie, RG, like we share all the same kind of friends and probably philosophies, but you and I have never had a good chat, and I'm just so excited to have you on the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this. Absolutely,
man. So, how would you, most people do these long glowing introductions. You're obviously an incredible artist. You know, your name is NFT Ranching. You know, you're obviously you've owned herds of sheep. Are sheep herds or are sheep something else? Flocks. I knew it's right away. I knew it sounded wrong. And I'm like, nursery rhyme. There's got to be one that's going to get this.
Herd of cattle, flock of sheep.
Okay, cool. And a murder of crows.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Strange, but okay.
I had it explained to me once, and I was like, but I currently can't remember what the reasoning was behind that. But
yeah,
like, so weird.
Yeah, so you've been in Bitcoin a long time. I know, you know, before the show, I always make the mistake, and Disco always tells me, it's like, quit doing the show before the show. There's so much, like, you and I probably just we probably just didn't record a good 50-minute show. But you've been in Bitcoin a long time. You're a great artist. You've been in Ordinals forever. Just tell us how your evolution in the crypto space, or if it's always been Bitcoin specific.
Well, it's like an evolving story. I can't even really pinpoint. I remember like the very first thing that ever got me thinking about Bitcoin was I used to work in oil and gas, and I was up north, and I had a helper who was very tuned into alt ways of thinking. Maybe it's the process. Anyways, he got me listening to podcasts, of course. So I started listening to these Bitcoin podcasts, and that got me thinking about alternative uses of money and all this, especially like the idea of freedom to transact. All these things started resonating with me. And so I started dabbling, but it wasn't really like Bitcoin didn't really become a main stage event for me until we moved home and bought the ranch from my family. And what we did was I was looking at my electricity bills actually for heating the barns in the winter when we were either lambing or calving, and I had all this waste energy from these heat lamps and stuff. Like the electricity bill is the same. It was extreme and expensive, and I was like, well, what if there was a way that you could heat this space and reduce the cost beyond just doing LED? And I was like, I remember hearing something about heat from Bitcoin miners. So then I started looking into it, and that's what brought me into this idea that we should be heating these stalls with actual ASIC mining rigs, and then like using the waste heat to heat all the spaces, and then off chance of maybe mining, like maybe gaining these blocks and making money back. So that's what we did. We set up these Bitcoin miners in the barn. We've now got them in the shop, and I've even got them here in the house, running as a secondary furnace. And that's what really brought it full. And then like around that same time, as we were getting our feet really wet with Bitcoin, um, somewhere in that I caught whiff of Ordinals off the back end of NFTs, because I was always interested in art, and like the idea of digital art and being able to sell art beyond just a regular gallery is a cool concept. And I'd never, this was way before I ever started sharing any of my own art. I'd never had this idea that I wanted to sell my own art, mostly for personal reasons. I never thought it was enough to even like show. People like Donnie will argue with you, and that's part of why I'm sharing my artwork nowadays. But
so Donnie convinced you, like, dude, you're super talented.
He was one of the people. Eddie from Super Chief Galleries is another one who was like, you got to really share this. And then a bunch of my friends have all said the same thing, because I've done little things here and there just to like, when I needed a concept or an idea shown on Twitter here, it'd be like, oh, I'll just draw it myself, because I'm not going to pay someone something I can do myself.
Right. Screw you, Stable Diffusion. I'll draw it.
Yeah, exactly. Or it's like when we were so anyways, I caught whiff of Ordinals, and I was just like, this makes sense with what I know about Bitcoin. This makes sense that storing art here will be a way better long-term place, because what I could see back when I was looking, like when Ordinals was starting, was all the rugs. Like I was so used to seeing art just disappear off the screen and being like, oh shit.
Are you saying the rugs, like the whole IPFS fiasco?
Yeah, everything. You just see, and like obviously we just saw that again recently with another project, and it just
Clone X, which was bought by Nike. Like I was never a fan of that artwork, but I did succumb in my ETH days to the Clone X. Like there were like these Nike cubes, but there was always the promise of the first physical shoe, and I was like, you know what? As a nerdy collector, I was like, I want the first Nike shoe. And they kept being like, now you get the second spherical cube, and then now the third. And finally I just gave up. And I think they finally released the shoe after like the third one or something. I'm like, you know what? Screw this.
Well,
and now
very like euphoric time too, right? Like that was like NFTs, everybody, like there was the prospect of metaverse, and everything was very
other deeds.
It was all these promises, and people were able to capitalize off of promises forever. And that's why when Ordinals came around and it went back to just being no promises, like I don't know how early you came to the Ordinals scene, but at the very beginning when we were trading on spreadsheets.
Dude, I'm the one who I created this pre-market. I created the spreadsheet. So I went to Butoshi, I went to Ordinal Punk Guy, I went to Owl, I went to everybody. And basically they all had them on different spreadsheets, and I made them fill out mine because me and the group I was in wanted to just see the prices of all the ones we wanted to buy them together. So
I'm
Chicago X. That was my name in the first year. So I was there that first week.
Okay, because there was a sheet that we all talked about filling out and putting our sales on and like updated like what the listing prices were. And,
that was me. That was like three or 4 weeks before then a rudimentary market. Maybe it was even 2 months, but so I was there that first weekend in January, and I got hooked up with Owl. He inscribed. I didn't know what else to inscribe. So I'm like, here's all my MFers and Azuki. So I have a bunch of sub 5K stuff there.
Oh, because I was talking to some people from the Azuki community and being like, you guys should do this before someone else does it for you, because it's just the Wild West. And that was right around the time when, do you remember how Ordinals bought, like how it used to just be like that little like screen that they had and you just drag and click, like when they finally got that set up I was like, people are gonna start doing this with like all the big NFT names,
Yep.
and didn't really happen, but like we have Bitcoin punks
I
and
was gonna
there's
say
some.
Bitcoin punks, which I had I had a crypto punk, and mine, like, I kept doing it, and it kept being like, sorry, file size wrong, like, and it kept failing, and I didn't get my own, and I was like, Robert, like, what the fuck, dude? And he was like, sorry, dude, there's nothing I could do. I was like, all right, I don't like Bitcoin punks, but
Yeah,
they were the ones who kind of did it, like, hey, everybody, like, bring them back to the mother chain. It's like, yeah, but are they yours? I don't know. So it's interesting. It's interesting.
and then seeing the evolution of all of that over
Right.
the last few years and how some people did bridge, some people didn't bridge, some people tried to say where they are, and it's just kind of been cool to see the whole evolution of this. But it was nice anyways, like I was saying, it was nice to come over here, especially in the early days, and be like, this is new, everybody's working together to try and
Yep.
make this be the best and better than what we've come from before. And obviously now we're over 90 million inscriptions, which is something couldn't even fathom back when we were sub 10K. Like I didn't even expect 10K to happen as quickly as it did.
It was a hockey stick. So I got a bunch sub 5K. Thank you to Owl. And somebody else, someone from the ETH camp was over for a while, a big name who had a big project over there. He actually inscribed my CryptoPunk at like 24, 21 or somewhere around there. So it was very kind of them. I do have an MFer that's like 4,700. And I did, of course, teleburn the real MFer over there. And I do have my 3 Azuki over on the Bitcoin side, but I was too much of a chicken to teleburn any of the Zuki because they were still worth like 5 or 6 grand. I'm like, all right, would that be smart or stupid? Like I may, the play. So I sold them all eventually. I'm only ordinals now, but I'm almost thinking in the long run, especially when that IPFS pointer is gone in 10 years, I'll grab my 3 Azuki that I used to own, and then I'll officially teleburn them. So they'll be, real collector's items on ordinals. So get
And
the
not
money,
just
sell it, and later buy it for pennies on the dollar and bring it over to Ordinals where it belongs anyway. Because that art, Azuki art, is I was mesmerized by that. It's cool. Like they did a killer job with that art.
well, the animations, like their series that they're doing on YouTube, it's cool.
It's
Just
pretty cool, yeah. Like I interviewed Zagabond probably 4 or 5 months ago. Like he's a good dude. Like, obviously he got called out for a lot of his stuff early on. The Eternals launch was silly, but like it would be very easy with royalties going away to just be like slow rug, but they bought anime.com. Like they're going for it. Like I have full respect for them. And I was a big community member there, and I wasn't the heaviest fudder there, but I was like, guys, what are you doing? Why are you launching another 20,000? You're going to dilute. And they did it. And look what happened. Like the floor fell out, but I think there's what's that?
is that beans?
No, the beans were at free airdrop. The elementals were
Okay.
paid, and those came the next summer. And once the elementals came out, Azuki like went from 18 to 20 ETH to like back to 4 or 5 like within 3 days. It just like literally the carpet or the floor literally fell from beneath their feet. So, it is what it is, but they're trying. And so at least they're not a full rug like other deeds, gets venture capital involved, and they sold literally fake land. Like it's the same playbook from like the gold rush era, 1848, here are the pickaxes and shovels. Here's a plot of land you can own,
Oh, and it was so quick because I remember because that was around the same time, like the prices of other deeds going down to like pennies or whatever they ended up going down to was around the same time that Bitcoin frogs, I'm pretty sure, was going up.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like that's kind of how my brain anyways remembers that time frame, because I remember being down at the barn and seeing the prices of the one and then being like, oh, this is wild, because like we're on a space listening to people riveting, and it's
Yeah.
just like a era.
Yeah, that's interesting. Are you part of the frogs team? I don't even know. Like now that I'm seeing your PFP, I'm realizing like you and I have definitely talked because you did the miners, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you and you were on that spreadsheet. You were like one of the first one. The only group, and I hope I don't offend you on this. The only person that was so rude to me that I didn't put on there in the early days was that Ordinal Maxi Biz, not the OMB, obviously that came later, but remember the ones where it's the cartoons like screaming at the computer, like it was Bitcoin Maxis. And the guy, I was like, hey, I'm going to put you on the spreadsheet with the miners and, the inscribed Pepes and all the, Ordinal punks and obviously the shrooms hadn't been sold yet. And I was like, can I put you on? And he's like, it's none of your business what the price is. I'm like, dude, I represent like all the people who want to buy everything are literally like in my group. And he's like, and all the people who had them were like, dude, give him the pricing. And the guy like wouldn't do it. And I was like, okay, well, see you later, guy. But no, I totally worked with you. Yeah, we put you on there. I'd have to find it, but because we had the Google spreadsheet, then we put it like a little simple little Vercel app after that. And then we were like, somebody came out with the first thing, and then we were like, you know what? My job's done here. Like I bought what I wanted to buy, and now real infrastructure is coming in. So I'm glad I could be the Band-Aid and duct tape between the two. But those were fun days, man. Like that January of 23, those first 2 or 3 months were just wild.
Oh, just it was so unknown. Like it was so unknown how this was all going to play out, what was going to happen, like investment, like what was like the time and energy we were putting into it too at that point was like, I'd say it was less than what we're putting into it now, in the sense that now this is all consuming like our life, like this is the new normal. But whereas at that time I was working, like we were like, that was January, so I would have been lambing. I was living in the barn half the time. Like I would be on my phone in the barn or on my laptop, like because I'd be there. I had a cot set up in one of the stalls so I could sleep there at night. So then I could hear the sound changes, like if a, a ewe was starting to give birth, and then I could come out and assist if it was needed, and then
Wow.
go back to bed. And so yeah, like that was always like in the early days. Like we used to host a space called Miners Who Ordinal, and it would be Fridays on Twitter, and I would always be hosting that like out in the field in my truck.
Oh,
It's like
that's
that.
so cool. So you have these fond memories of like literally doing, I don't want to say God's work, but like Earth's work, like farming,
Yeah.
lambing, while you're doing some of the most cutting edge things. And like you and I, like, I don't think what people realize, like you go from Bitcoin now to ordinals, like this is our new normal, and the language you and I have to talk to each other and our whole ecosystem is even more unique than how Bitcoin can talk to each other, because we have another social layer of PFP and true art and how to push the blockchain and how to get different kinds of art and really how to push it further and further and further and keep the blockchain busy. You zoom out now to like our families, our normie friends, and they're like, what do you do? And you're like, God, where do I start? Like, I'm into crypto. They're like, yeah, I'm with you. I'm into Bitcoin. Yeah, yeah. And I really like good, smart, fine art on Bitcoin. They're like, what? Like, what are you talking
Yeah.
about? Like,
Well,
how
and
do
it's
you talk? You can't talk to them.
well, you can't even talk to, like at my Bitcoin meetups and stuff. Sometimes it's hard because like bringing, once you start talking about ordinals to a lot of the Bitcoiners, they think there was always that line in the sand where like this isn't a line we're going to cross, and so it became kind of ostracizing in a way. So it's like trying to support the local Bitcoin communities and push Bitcoin as much as you can, while knowing that like you're going to take this hit whenever like I remember our Bitcoin conference last year, the Canadian one that we have up here. I remember talking to a bunch of people and everything, like, and you kind of know a bunch of people and you know all these interesting circles, and you talking about Bitcoin mining and pushing Bitcoin policies and all this kind of stuff. And then they ask, like, what are you working on right now? And it's like, well, I'm working on this thing called Ordinals. And they're like, okay, so you're a scammer.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, we like this, let's back it up. What do you know? Let's debunk whatever you think you know, and let's just talk about the facts instead of just using words, just like saying things that are like
labels, right?
Yeah, labels. Let's just stop labeling things and look at what actually is happening and see why it's beneficial. Because I can tell you right now, it's very interesting that these Bitcoin miners that won't say it out loud, but if you want to ask them, these guys over here, they're all secret ordinal holders because they were some of the first people on the scene.
Yep.
Because they see the benefits of what it will do for transaction fees and stuff like that. Whereas you, as just a hodler, have this Puritan view that's not going to necessarily align, because like in your mind it's defacing
right
the greatest money, but it's not. I think we're advancing culture here as well, in parody of the hardest money as well. You know what I mean? Like it's
100%. No, you raise a really good point. So when I was in I think it was in Nashville, we were in a coffee shop and it was like me, Stephen Miller, and Scribe, some of my closest friends. We were just getting breakfast and some coffee, and we ran into some of the Bitcoin main conference guys, and we were just talking. And it's funny because when we said, yeah, we're here early because we came for the Ordinals conference first or whatever, and they're like, it's funny because the beginning of the conversation, they were like, oh, well, we're Bitcoiners. Like, we're gonna, like, they're like, I listen to this podcast and this macro, this Bitcoin maxi. And they don't realize we know probably more about, like, just because we're Ordinals people, we're not Ordinals people and you're Bitcoin people. We're Bitcoin people and you're Bitcoin people. And we have a whole nother social layer that you don't see or understand yet. And we can talk your talk all day long because we probably came before you. And if we didn't, that's fine, but we probably did. So we've almost leveled up because we've accepted this social art layer that these people, because Luke Dash Jr. or someone just told them not to accept. But by the time like they got their coffees 15 minutes later, they were kind of like asking us questions. Like, so there was almost like this kind shift where I'm like, no, well, you're kind of missing this. Like we're full on Bitcoiners here, dude. Like we get it. Trust me. We've been around for most of us for a decade or more. And cause a lot of these guys are 2 and 3 year guys and they just know what they're told and the Kool-Aid that they've drank from the podcasters they listen to. They just don't get it. Sounds like, I mean, you've been in the trenches way longer than me. And you've been,
sorry, I didn't mean
no, please interrupt anytime.
Along those same lines, like the same people, like you had all these niche groups of Bitcoiners that just, you, like you were saying, like your figureheads that knew as much as humanly possible. They're right. The ones doing the podcast. They're the ones writing the books. We've got a culture here where, at least at the beginning, we were trying to form where everybody knew everything about Bitcoin. That's why it was get your node. Here's how to start up a node. Here's how to inscribe. Here's all the education on Bitcoin. And everybody that's like been in Ordinals for more than a minute has a greater base understanding and onboarding, I believe, than most people just being onboarded to Bitcoin via ETFs and off a podcast. Because most people will just be like, okay, I need to, maybe they'll figure out self-custody, but a lot of people still fall for the trap of having it on an exchange.
Right.
But they'll need to buy a Bitcoin or some sats, and I'm gonna hold them here and I'm good. I'm not going to think about it because the number go up and it'll be, that's all. That's what Bitcoin is to them.
And that's
baby. The whole thing. Whereas for a lot of us, once you grasp the concept of what Bitcoin is and what is beyond Bitcoin and what that means, it starts to look different,
Oh,
right? Like
100%.
like my wife and I, we've been living off of Bitcoin for years and like purely in Bitcoin. So when you transact and think in a Bitcoin ecosystem, everything is a little different. The way you look at purchasing things and stuff like that. Like it's an interesting concept when you can go to a store and be like, I could buy that, but I would rather hold my Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, you probably have similar stories to me, but I mean, I bought my first, we'll call it my first hardware wallet at probably point 0.7 Bitcoin. And it was, trust me when I say it was a deal at the time. And now I'm like, oh, and I think the first Trezors, I don't, or hardware wallets, I don't think you could buy, with cash than you eventually could. And obviously everything now, see, if I can spend in fiat, I will, but it sounds like you're saying, let's go there. The Bitcoin standard, which I don't know if Michael Saylor coined the phrase. He's certainly the one that made it popular. So you and your family are entirely on the Bitcoin standard.
So the way it works is like obviously it's getting easier now too. There's so many workarounds, but there's companies like Bold and like Bull Bitcoin in Canada, and there's places like this where you can pay like we pay our electricity bills in Bitcoin, so I don't see the fiat side of that. I'll pay the electricity bill in Bitcoin
Oh, no
to this
kidding.
company,
Okay.
and then they do all the exchanges. So I'm sure like there's still that middle layer. We're not, because like the world isn't completely ready for
No.
Bitcoin, like peer-to-peer transactions on that scale, but you have these middlemen that are, and so for us, I have a credit card that I pay literally in Bitcoin, and I use that to pay for any groceries, airplane tickets, any of that kind of stuff. So for me, it's normally like Xverse wallet, for example. I'll send something out of cold storage to that.
Right.
From there, I'll send it to wherever I need to pay my bills. So it'll be like, instead of going to a bank and having to explain to them that I need $20,000 to pay the credit card off and that kind of stuff, where it's like, oh, we have home renos coming up, or we have like the roof blew off the shop because of the windstorm. We got to replace that. And instead of having to go ask a bank for money, I can just directly pay the guy either in Bitcoin if he accepts it, or pay him an e-transfer that I've gotten facilitated through another party, which I paid them in Bitcoin to do it.
That's awesome. So this bold, I think you called it bold Bitcoin. It is
Bull, Bull, like
Oh,
Bull Bitcoin.
bull Bitcoin. And that in
Yeah.
Canada is literally your intermediary, because you obviously have miners that heat and generate Bitcoin on the ranch, right?
Yeah.
And bull Bitcoin, you pay your mortgage, all your bills that obviously these companies don't take fiat, but bull for a little cut or a monthly fee or whatever, however
Yeah.
they do it, will literally handle everything. And the beauty is, and mistake me if I'm wrong, oh Jesus, you don't have to like KYC and set up accounts with all these things, right?
Yeah, there's like limits. So obviously, once you go to a certain amount, because of like, once you go to spending certain amounts, you will have to KYC to some form because they are compliant actually as far as reporting and all that stuff goes. But as far as someone living off of Bitcoin and not having to worry about even trying to get money, like I couldn't remember how I used to have to sell on the exchange in order to withdraw fiat into a bank account back in the day. And I remember how big of a pain in the ass that was, especially once a lot of the exchanges got banned from being within Canada.
Did
So
they
then
did they really?
yeah, like I can't remember.
What are there? So you're saying there was a bunch that got banned. Are there
Well, like
any?
they stopped operating. It might not have been a ban, but because of the way the government was, I can't remember exactly how that played out, but it was something to do with like they were no longer going to be operating within Canada. So you were like given X amount of time to withdraw from the exchanges, and then your accounts were being closed down. And so that was a hurdle.
Is Bitcoin still possible to buy on any exchanges up there? You can still get Bitcoin, right?
I'm sure, but I haven't done that in so long.
Good for
like
you.
The traditional exchange has not been part of my life for a while now, so I'm just kind of.
I'm jealous. That's a good.
I don't.
That's
So
a
I
good
don't know.
feeling.
I don't know what I don't know. Is
right.
Kind of the.
So, but you're able to, because obviously you're a big miner. You've been a big miner for a long time. That's why it's just funny when you meet like, Bitcoin maxis at the conferences. It's like, guys, if like I can teach you a lot. I know more about like the infrastructure and the inner workings of Bitcoin and the movement that's happening in this world than anybody. I'm happy to share with you. And I think the ordinal stigma too, I think it's coming down. Like, I think Luke Dash, you just gave up because you realized like, why am I would assume he came to a senses like, wait, I'm making more money, but maybe he'll never give up. I don't know. It's just interesting because like I remember in the early days for me, like 15, 16, 17, when Bitcoin would go up, I'd be like, yay for me, Bitcoin's going up. And when it went down, I'd be like, oh, boo for me, Bitcoin's going down. But once like you get into ordinals and you have this social layer, and obviously I was, listening to Trace Mayer, Andreas, and I don't know who your early influencers were, but I was soaking up the culture. But that artistic layer that we have with ordinals, it brings us together in communities that NGU technology and just being a Bitcoin maxi can't do. It can in other ways, but there's certain areas that it can't touch. And I would argue that we have, for those of us who are here for the long run, because there's been a lot of drama lately, we won't go there, but I think arguably we are creating one of the tightest Bitcoin communities within the Bitcoin community, if that's fair.
No, 100%. And I think it's interesting to see people when their mind shift switches from just the excitement. And obviously we're always excited about Bitcoin and the prices when they go up, but I'm always equally as excited when the price goes down.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, well, okay, now is a chance for me to try and onboard like my parents and get them in at a really good price and show them that like this is the time to get in versus when it was at $108,000.
Right.
Like it's like we're at 94 now. Give it a shot, please.
Yeah. Has your family have they embraced it yet?
My parents have, yeah. They
Nice.
It was really funny because I gave them some of my early. I set my dad up. I walked him through how to set up an Xverse wallet, and I gave him some of my early inscriptions that I did. And I was like, "Here's some stuff I did. Don't do anything with it. Just leave it there.
Yeah, please
don't
touch it.
Forever." Yeah, this is for you, and some of my early artwork, and shit like that. And I put that in there, and then I sent him some Bitcoin, and I was like, "Just hold it." And then I always make the argument, like, how is your Bitcoin portfolio in comparison to your stocks and your bond? Like, how's everything else doing? Like, what's performing better? Can you give me? And he'll be like, oh, my Bitcoin's up like 1,100%. And I'm like, yeah, isn't that wild?
Isn't that crazy, Dad? That's awesome. Like, you know what? That's a great call. I did that with my kids. I gave them like, on paper anyway, like 0.1 each or something. And they're like, wait, 0.1, like as they get older, the math gets easier and they're like, wait a second,
And like, by the time I set up Bitcoin accounts for all of my kids, essentially, they all have cold wallets. Like they're all too young.
Right.
To do anything with them. But I have this like concept in my mind that like once they're 18,
yeah,
and they want to decide what they like. If one wants to go to school, they can. That's where they'll get their money from.
Oh,
One wants to start their own business. That's where they can get their money from.
that's pretty
One wants
cool.
to just go be an artist on a beach. That's where they can get their money from. I don't really give a shit as long as they're have a plan and they're going to do something with it.
Yeah,
Like,
be a
but I'm
human.
not going to give it to them. It's so much easier to custody and help them through that process than what a traditional bank will do, where they'll give you a credit card as soon as you turn 18 and say, rack up some credit. Why don't you go to a secondary school, rack up some more credit, and then be in swimming in debt by the time you're 25,
Be
get a job that
enslaved. Yeah.
off, and be stuck in the system.
Yep. Yeah, my kid's super smart. Like he's way smarter than I was. Like I was good at math, but he's good at math. He's a good writer. He's loves science. And now with YouTube, like you can learn, like he loves nuclear fusion and fission, and he doesn't even watch videos of nuclear fusion and fission. He watches videos of a guy watching videos on nuclear fusion and fission who comments on the nuances of it. I'm like, my God, that's like exponential learning. Like you're getting like the amount of learning these days is incredible. And he's like, Dad, he goes back and forth and he's like, college is dumb. I'm like, I'm not going to disagree. I said it opens doors, but I think things are changing so fast. I said, you do you, dude. Like there might be a lot more industry coming online. You might be able to work with your hands and like run a shop or like just keep your eyes open. I'm helping him be an entrepreneur this summer doing like window washing and like lawn mowing and stuff. And he wants to charge like $30 to wash a big house's windows. I'm like, you could charge $30, but if you charge $30 on the second one and it took you 7 hours, like, you might want to find your price that makes sense for everybody, So, it's interesting, but yeah, bringing Bitcoin into it, I need to figure out, you've thought a lot more about it, I think, than I have. Like at 18, do you just pass it over or do you still kind of custody and help chaperone the direction they want to go in?
Yeah, that's the thing, is trying to figure out, like, because they say like the human brain doesn't stop developing fully until like you're not truly an adult till you're 25,
Well,
right?
and if you're a boy, like call it like
Yeah,
47, let's be honest.
I'm
Girls,
still a kid,
yeah,
so
dude,
get
I'm
it.
I'm
But
over 50 and I'm like just getting there.
but I think the concept of having the money there set aside for them and then helping them through, because they'll go through their ups and downs, and if you just gave a kid that much money too, the first thing they would do is spend it.
Yeah, you
And
got to
what
be
they're gonna
careful.
spend it on, right? And so I think there's like some nuances there that will help them through, because like I remember myself at 18 and the shit I would spend money on for my job and be like, that's not
Yeah.
necessarily the best way to waste potentially lots of money.
Yeah, I think you've answered my question. So it's probably a good chaperone thing at first, or you kind of feel out the kid. Like if you think they're just going to be like a hole in their pocket, like, maybe we should have a plan. Cause I always tell my son, like my company, I used to I worked at MTV for like 12 years back in the days when it was cool and they paid for my MBA and everything. I probably wouldn't have gotten an MBA had they not paid for it. But if my son or wanted to do anything like that, I'd be like, dude, let's set you up. Like, let's try and set up a company. And if it fails, there's your MBA times 100. And if it succeeds, there's like your first business, like,
Yeah, exactly. Start a business with it.
right.
Like if they have a constructive plan for how they want to break down or use some of it, it's that's a bridge I don't have to cross for at least another 12 years. So I've got some time to think out the whole
Yeah, you
process.
definitely have some time. So how has it been, like, let's get back a little to like the bull Bitcoin and the being like you are, you're in the country just north of the United States and you've been living on the Bitcoin standard for a long time. And you're saying now you've been doing it so long, it's, dare I say, is it easy?
It just everything feels easy after going through difficulty for so long. Like I think about like our life in general. Like we were like my wife and I think back to the days when we first got married and how poor we were, like just so broke that we would eat like pita pizzas, and we'd eat the same, like we'd eat pita pizzas twice a day, every day, like trying to save money. Like it was just how far we've come and like the choices we made. But like you think about how all the difficult, like when I used to work like 16 to 18 hours a day,
Wow.
and
Is that when you
try
took over the farm?
even
Or even
before,
before that? So
like
you were
even
always,
I
you've
had,
always been a hardworking saver, and your wife has too.
yeah, like I've been like, we owned like a construction company before, and then we sold, like I sold the construction company back when I had my first son, and I had this realization that like watching him growing up through FaceTime on my phone was
Yeah.
not uh, going to work for me. I
Nope.
realized that like family was way more
Yep.
important to me than the money. So then I stopped. So then I like basically wrapped that all up, and like I missed. I can't think of all the things I missed and I had to watch on a phone, and it
Right.
just was terrible. So then we got rid of that and moved home, and that's like we bought the ranch and started taking over the ranch off my parents, because like they were looking to retire, and we were like, well, we can make this work. So it's just the same, just shifting. But like when we were starting the ranch, like ranching doesn't make money. Like it's not it's not this glorious, like, wealth product.
Right.
It's a great way of living, but at the beginning, like when we were just getting the ranch started, like I contracted to the city. I would work an 8 hour shift. I would get up at like 4 in the morning, go feed animals. Then I'd go to work at 6. Then I'd be home at 6. I'd feed the animals. I'd hang out, like, so I was work, and then and then when Ordinals was starting, I was doing all of that plus trying to be in on all of this Ordinal stuff at the same time. So I'd have like, quite often I was doing that stuff from like 11 o'clock to like 2 in the morning. And then,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. So
So
when did you know? Because obviously you've been mining a lot longer than Ordinals has been around. Like you took over the ranch as when your first kids were born and the kids were little. When did you know? When did it go from like you guys just eating these two pita bread pizzas a day to like,
that happened, like, oh, the pita bread pizza days thing was, that was like, oh man, that was 2016.
okay,
Yeah, that was like 2016. And then, like even like the oil and gas company, that was pretty, like we started eating a lot better. Like
got
oil and
it.
gas, definitely, like
So you did a good job with the
we had a
company.
nice little
Got it.
company. We were busy, but like policies and politics and all this stuff started changing. Like one of my biggest problems was they started bringing in unskilled labor and replacing skilled labor with unskilled labor to lower costs. And so then I started seeing an influx of major accidents on job sites.
Oh,
And so
geez.
like the actual nail in the coffin wasn't just like watching my kids growing up. There was a period of 2 years where I saw some major, like, there were two plants that had explosions that I was working at, and based on just people not doing proper work safe procedures. And I had to do CPR on a guy at one point, and by the time the ambulance came, he was already dead. There was no way like to
I'm so
resuscitate him.
sorry.
He's
Wow.
Yeah, it's just so the sheer shit I was seeing, and I was like, this. I did a job. I was like at home, and I remember being like, this is a 2 week job. It'll pay for the next like 3 months of bills. So I was like, I should just go do that. I can leave the farm for a couple weeks and go do this job. And of course, sure shit, that ended up being like a $200 million, like that whole job site. Someone tried to weld on a pipe that hadn't been properly locked out and blown down, and of course it blew up, and
Oh my
it was too
God.
close to comfort. So I remember calling my wife and being like, babe, I want you to know I'm okay, and I'll be home in an hour. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, oh, well, you're going to turn on the TV at some point here in the next 10 minutes, I'm sure. And you're going to see on the news that the location I'm at is exploding. And she's like, oh my God, she turned on the news and she's like, holy fuck, are you okay? And
You're like, again.
yeah, like literally, I am like off site. All my guys are good. We're out of here.
Wow. And that was just, so that was the final blow. And did you have the ranch at this point, or this is before?
Yeah, we had the ranch at that point, but we were
Okay.
just,
So you knew you were transitioning anyway, but this made it with your kids, and like it just made
yeah,
it
this was like I'm no longer going to do side jobs because they're willing to pay me awesome amounts of money. I'm
because of the
not going
risk.
to, it's not worth it. The risk is too high now.
God. So it
I was
wasn't
like,
your company
yeah,
hired
it had 9
unskilled
lives.
labor, everybody
No.
else hired unskilled labor.
Yeah. And that was the problem. And so you're working directly beside people that like I had to be a red seal pipe fitter by trade in order to be able to run jobs and do this kind of work. And yet now you're hiring people and calling them crew truckers and putting them in these jobs, the same seat as what I would be sitting in, without the experience or the knowledge to do the task at hand,
Right.
basically wing it. And so I was like, this is wild.
God, that is cool. I'm glad you made the decision when you did. Your minor collection is called Ordinal Miners, right?
Yeah, correct.
So it's this one. Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just like, now it's all like coming back to me. But you have, because these look newer. Did you draw all these?
No, those are all AI. That was right when AI was first. Remember, like Chat GPT and everything was first, Mid Journey,
Yeah, yeah,
all
yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff. And it was like, these are all trying to figure out a consistent prompt that spits out different images fast enough to get them on chain under 10K. That was like the beginning days of all of that. So it was
But
very exciting. Like to me, AI art at that time was very cool because it was so niche and new, right?
yeah, no, this is so cool. But did you also do, who did the one with the old miner pictures with the Bitcoin eyes? Is that you too?
With the Bitcoin
Yeah,
eyes.
it's like it was like sub 5K, sub 10K maybe. If you saw him, you know him. I tried to look up the name, but it's literally like guys with pickaxes and shovels. Like it's literally pictures from the gold rush in 1848 or after that, whatever.
Yeah.
Old pictures, and someone just put Bitcoin eyes on them, and it's all sepia, and it's cool.
I remember that, but I remember that. Sorry, my kids just
No
bombarded
worries.
the office here.
No worries.
You know what I'll do to help? My wife has locked the door here. One sec.
Okay. Oh, these are super
Yeah,
cool.
they're not used to me being gone for an hour
Yeah.
like this. So, I do remember those.
It doesn't matter.
I don't
Because I
remember who
remember
they
I remember these for sure because these are sub. Oh, a couple of these are sub. Okay, so there we go. So some of these are sub 10K. Inscription number low to high. Okay, cool. So you got a couple in under 10. You got a bunch in under 10K. Okay, and then the rest came in under 100K. Yeah, these are super cool. This is awesome. Yeah, I'll think of the name of them
Yeah, I think
because
the last inscription that we got in was 13,280 or something like that.
oh, okay. So it says sub 100K, but it really is way sub 100K. Yeah, it's 13,333. That's a good one to end on. I like that.
Yeah.
With that awesome like Russian Bitcoin symbol and an AI generated. But let's get into. I mean, God, I could talk to you honestly forever because I think the Bitcoin sovereign citizen is such an interesting. Oh, I'm on my desktop. Is such an interesting topic because like as time goes on I want to go there. I own a company and it still throws off fiat, but like you don't even, a lot of your, most of your revenue doesn't even come through fiat, so you don't even have to think about that.
No, you know what you need? You should just, as a company, start using. You just need to get one of these, and then you just need to set up your own wallet and start going this way.
Yeah,
Right?
I should do that. I mean, we just get paid by our clients each month. Like I could always convert the fiat right away, but and I
You just
probably
gotta start. You start it. Got to start being like, you know, as a client, you can have a 5% discount if you pay in Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's not a bad call. I should do that. Um, so let's talk about Sheeple. You've been posting more and more about it. I absolutely love these, dude. And I know, like, on the timeline, every time you post, like, now that the algorithm knows, they're like, oh well, Blue loves Chips Sheeple. I'll see you right at the top. I'll be like, when, what? Like, I think, I mean, the art is so beautiful, and I feel like there's few people in the world who, I mean, obviously there's a lot of great artists in the world, but you own flocks of sheep. The way you describe them as family, and like, everyone always makes fun of the sheep because they're like, they're just wimpy and herd mentality, but you're like, sheep are smart. They work together. They are in packs, and that makes them who they are, and they're special. So I'd love to learn more about that as we kind of go through the couple that you have. You showed us that beautiful picture of the female one you're working on. So I just asked you 14 questions. Like,
Yeah, I'm
tell
kind of like, where are we going here?
tell it fine. Let me be more focused for you then.
Yeah.
What was and I kind of know the answer, but I'd love to hear it. What was the inspiration behind drawing these?
Yeah. So we actually sold our flock 2 winters ago now. And we sold the flock because, like, just to pay the bills. Like, it was just, we had a really dry, we've had really bad crop seasons up here. It's been super dry. And we had to, like, the bills for the mortgage for the ranch were not cheap. Like, so like when you're relying on a $50,000 revenue of income from a crop sale on the minimum to like pay off a mortgage, it and then you don't have that, it's like, well, shit, we got to find some way to offset the cost. And it's like, well, we don't have enough leftover feed to pay, like, to feed these animals through
Right.
the winter. So it's like, okay, we'll sell all the hay we've got, we'll sell the sheep, and we'll just knuckle down, regroup, and start over in the spring, like when things get better and cheaper, and start over. I just never realized how big of an impact that would have on my son, my second oldest son,
Mm-hmm.
especially because that's all he's ever known is sheep. We've always been sheep farmers. We've always, lived on the ranch as far as he's concerned. And so he was very sad. Like, the question, why, where are the sheep going? Why are they going? Like, what are they going to do? Are they going to come back? That was hard. That was like
Oh,
really hard. So it was, yeah, it's just kind of like one of those things. So I tried to think of, like, how can I make this easier and softer? And so I started drawing these characters every day. And I just kind of came up with this idea that, like, what's kind of funny and kind of, like, in my mind, it was kind of a cool concept anyways. It's like these anthropomorphized sheep, where they're like sheep wearing humans clothing,
right.
is kind of funny idea because they were our family. So it's like, you just sheep, obviously, like we would talk about like them wearing like bow ties and stuff. And I was like, well, we take it to the next level. And I started showing these to my kids, the ones I was drawing, and like their reactions were like, like my son would laugh and be like, oh, what if the sheep had like laser eyes like that OMB you have or something like that, right? And it's like, okay, well, let's draw that. And actually, since we're here, I have some of those original, because like it was a different, they're much different than these pieces that I'm doing now for everyone, um because these are obviously more time consuming, but this is kind of these are kind of like the sketches I was doing for the kids, like this.
Oh, I love it. So you got the
And
Bitcoin
then
hat. Yep.
I could just change I could change them really quickly every day. And like, here we can, on this right now, I can do, I'll show you the original. We just put this on, put the hat on, and then I'll show you these are what my kids found hilarious, was these laser eyes like this. And it's just stuff like this, and then we just make them crack up.
Oh man, I love that. So So you just had fun with that. You were making them. You were at first. It sounds like you were sketching them a little quicker. I'm assuming these sketches, like this guy, this detail is just beautiful. Like I love hand drawn stuff. I love black and white, but like the attention to detail. I mean, obviously you're a phenomenal artist, but you've got to be a good artist and know sheep. Like it's like their family, their faces, like everyone. I mean, each of these has a totally different face. Some are a little wider, some are skinnier. Like they've got such human, like when I'm looking at this sheep's face now do they have that much personality and telling with their eyes and their mouths and their...
it's definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. Like, you actually like check one of the big ways of checking like animal health for sheep is like you look like it's their eyes. Their eyes tell a lot of stories, especially like if you pull down their eyelids, you can tell if they're like parasitic or
right.
like all that kind of stuff. You can tell if like it's the eyes and their actual like hoof conditions.
Okay.
Or two of the things you check, quick checks for animal health. So
interesting.
You get used to staring. Like when you stared at a sheep as much as I have, it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of second nature. And they're all different. These are different breeds of sheep as well. Like we had only one breed. We raised polypay sheep, which were like 4 genetic breeds altogether.
Is one of these in the polypay family?
Yeah, this is very much one of those like polypay sheep.
This is
they're
okay.
They have like an open face, but they're like a more full-headed. Like whereas like some breeds are like completely like that Silk Road sheep. He's like almost all wool, his entire face, and then like these are open. Now this I haven't ever
which
seen.
One's the Silk Road sheep? Sorry, is
that one?
This one right here.
Yeah. So you
see
I
see. Yeah, it's all curly, and you only get the eyes and the snout.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so like shearing different types of sheep, shearing off that wool and stuff. Like sheep look so different when they don't have their wool on, but you get used to seeing all the different faces. And this one here, obviously I added the hair. It's different, a little bit different hair on top.
Got it. So there's a bit of a humanization factor here.
I mean, there are breeds of sheep that fall in the hair sheep category, like Merano sheep and stuff like that, like the finer wool, and it is more straight, but it's not. You wouldn't see a sheep like this. Right. This is more. I actually had a picture of Casey Rodamore that looked kind of like this, and so that's what I was going off of. I was trying to make him into a sheep.
Oh, with the pipe, yeah, of course, the infamous pipe. Yeah,
so I thought that was very fitting for the Ordinals and what I was for my story I'm trying to tell here with these.
No, and I love it. And you're basically, I'll just go back to Ord.io because I think Ord.io is the only place you can actually sort by large file size. But you've got, there's Bugsy's new one. You've got the number like 3 in the top 10 or whatever. They're what, like, I know you can't actually get to 4. It's like 3.9 something, right?
Yeah, it's 3.9. Like, in using Slipstream, it's only 3.9. Like it's 3,992,000 or something like that is like the ultimate file size. And so to go bigger, you need a even more custom template, and then you got to find someone that'll actually put it through for you as well.
Right. And if they put it through, it sounds like someone said the closer you get to the top, the more they're like, and your price goes up exponentially too.
Yeah, I know. And that's like been one of those things. But so what we've been working on is trying to get them all within a byte together so that they're all together.
I like that. Yeah. Because I noticed
the very first one we put on was just this. Like I put this one on because originally my concept was I want to do 1 4-megger as an artist as like a piece of legacy,
right?
And make that the parent of all future art that I put on chain,
right?
But then when Ross was getting out of prison, I wanted to honor that. And so I was doing the Silk Road sheep
That's this
and that
guy.
concept. And so I'd have the little ode to the Silk Road with him. And once I did that, it kind of just became a thing where I was like, okay, well, now I'll do four, and that'll be one for each of my kids. And then I was like, oh, it's kind of a cool concept to have a 4 megger collection. So then I started working on these other 6 that I'm working on. And I was like, it would be nice to just have a 10-piece collection and call it a day there.
So the four first four for the 4 kids, so that they will get those, correct?
Actually, I don't know because I don't know how or what I'm doing with these at
Got
this
it.
point. I just know the collection itself will be 10 pieces, and we'll go from there as far as what these are going to look like down the road, if I'm going to use them for anything, or if I'm just going to sell them. I have no expectations. Here's another one. This is the other one I'm currently closest to working on right now. So you can see it.
Oh man, that one's got a tam. Oh man, I love that one. Because in I was telling you off the air that I love the sport of curling, and there's a lot of tams in curling too. So
Yeah.
that one's cool.
Well, I
That
figured it's
Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. Oh,
That one had a it looks like that one had a darker furred face. Is that
yeah, it's a black face sheep. So it's the actual
interesting?
breed is Suffolk, which is
Is that
just
Scottish? Suffix?
yeah, Suffolk is like Scottish English.
Okay, so thus the
Breed, yeah.
tam, like
Yeah, and so that's why it's going to be a Scottish sheep. He's going to have his tartan on, and you'll see. I'm going to actually incorporate my family crest. I'm drawing the family crest, and I'm going to put it on as the brooch, holding it all together on there.
your family's crest.
Yeah, yeah. I always kind of slip something like in a bunch. All the 4 megers, they all have like my kids' names written into the textures on the clothing and like
Oh, that's
little
so
little things
cool.
like that. So like, and because it's 4 megers and you can zoom them up, eventually someone will discover those things like where they're written and stuff. But I like wove them into the clothing and stuff. So until you zoom in, you don't see it. It's just part of the clothes. Like same with my signature. I sign all my pieces, but I sign it in a way that like it doesn't take away from the picture itself. But if you were to zoom in, you can tell that I signed that piece.
Oh man, that's so cool. Like, and this to me, this is what gives me inspiration and hope for this. Obviously, you've been an Ordinal since the beginning. You've been in Bitcoin. You've been mining since the beginning. But like this project is like you can't get more authentic than this. And I know this isn't you saying it; it's me saying it. Like you did it for the reason of your second oldest son like really identified with that flock and really loved those sheep. You all did, right? And he
Yeah.
showed it the most, and you're like, oh wow, this really obviously it was a loss to all of you, but as mom and dad, like that's a tough decision. That's a loss that you had to make a decision for the moment that you were in. And it sounds like a lot of the success you've had in your life and a lot of the ups, the peaks and the valleys have been made on this instinct and this intuition that it seems like you have an abundance of, and obviously with this art, an abundance of talent too. But to me, that the reason this is so inspirational is because you did it for your son. Now you're like every day that goes by, you're going to keep drawing. Now your number's 10, and you're just continuing to go to that, and that what you will do with it will unfold when it's time to unfold, and you're not forcing it. You're not like, I should sell these because I need to raise money because maybe I need to move or something or whatever. Like you're just
Yeah.
like, you're taking one step at a time. And to me, like I was one of those people, I grew up in a town that was affluent and everybody was expected to be successful. And you notice a lot of the fathers that pass on to their sons, you're successful because, you know, men and women, like you're very clever, you're very good at sales, or dare I say like manipulative, or like, you know how to like manage or control things. But the older I get, the more I see the beauty in what you create, the more I'm like, that's where the sweet spot of life and living are, right? It's like being in that moment where you've got a lot of plates you're spinning and a lot of decisions to be made, but you stress about them less because you're like, I know I'm on this path and I'm on this right path, and I'm just going to keep spinning these plates. And then maybe I'll sell this plate and stop spinning this one because I'm going to be spinning new ones, but it just comes naturally. Is that a fair kind of assessment?
Yeah, I think for the first time in my life, that's like where we're at. We have, you know, everything else that's going on. I know that for now, my focus is trying to get these out there, sharing them, and just I'm enjoying it's nice. Like one of the biggest things for me that was the hardest thing for me was to accept that people actually like what I'm drawing. So for me, it's kind of been fun breaking out of my shell a little bit and doing these more as well. So every day trying to get these pieces on, and then it's kind of fun to see like when people notice them on chain, and it's all just part of the journey of these four megas. It's kind of as it's unraveling. I love it.
Yeah. And the cool thing is too, like you're putting them out there, and you're like, it sounds like for the first time, you're like, you have a lot of talents in this world. I mean, obviously his drawing is one of them, but it sounds like when people find your art and you're like, wow, other people are kind of like, they're paying attention to this. Like, this is interesting. Would you like 10 sounds like such a small number to me, because like, I want to get one, but like, do you ever like, would you ever go to 21, or you're like, man, dude, 4 megas are tough. And these are a blessing to draw, but they're also like, they're super intricate. Like, and
they take a lot of time. Like that Sheep and Wolf's clothing, that was 120 hours.
Wow. So your attention to detail, are you drawing this with like Wacom or whatever, like a stylus, or is this all paper?
No, I'm doing these on, oh, it's over here. I'm doing these, like these are on paper, but so this is actually a lithographic print that I'm going to finish by hand.
Right.
Because I don't like the way it printed, but I want to do physicals. And so I'm trying to figure out like a realm for that. But this is all done on Procreate on the iPad.
Wow. On an iPad. So like an iPad Pro, and you can zoom in to the smallest of detail and just, I mean, that's incredible. What'd you say, 120 hours, just total guesstimate?
That's my guess. Like it's hard to like accurately figure out time. So other than like overall basis of weeks that it takes to draw them. Whereas this like did not take as much time. This actually used a couple mediums. I tried different things. So this actually wasn't completely the way I'm doing them now, where I like, so the hat, for example, I shaded that all with like traditional hatching style.
Okay.
Which like cross hatching until it got the darknesses. But I got kind of, because I originally made this piece, I made this for a Super Chief Gallery event in San Francisco last winter, and it was the first time I'd ever shared publicly my art.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a quick deadline, so I actually used I used something like chalk or something to shade in massive swaths the wool areas, and that's why the shading technique is so much different than how I'm doing all of these. For these are all individual.
Wow.
Yeah.
Absolutely so incredible, dude.
Just take so much more time. Like the first one for a reason, and the original piece actually had a Bitcoin lapel on it, but once we switched to putting these 4 megas, I couldn't get it to look, because I'd done the lapel as a separate layer. I couldn't get it to look right. at such a huge scale. So all of these are like single layer pieces.
Oh, it's incredible. So you just kept working to get the highest resolution with
It's
how do
all
you even check? Like, I know, like, I love what you said about getting them. Like, that was such a clever idea. Like, because with ordinals, there's so many decisions that get made over time. But I love that you stacked, like, you were like, you know what? I'm not going to try, obviously with one, you're trying to get as high as possible up on the 4 meg largest file. But then you're like, you know what? No, the flock stays together, and like
yeah.
these learnings that you had, like they're just, it's so cool because like right away, I mean, what's the first thing that you notice here? It's your 3 sheep because you created continuity. And the beauty is like the metaphor of the flock, like it works too. Like it's when things work, like I said, I own a coding company. My business partner always says, like, when you build like software that works, any added stuff they want later, it just like cascades and flows out. It's just beautiful. It just works. And it sounds like it's the same with kind of art and life. Like you make decisions, and sometimes we think we're making a decision on one dimension, and they kind of become multi-dimensional ones, and you listen to it. And this first guy, he's not necessarily the flock. He was first, sometimes there's the predecessors, sometimes there's the guinea pigs, but like we evolve, we learn, and there's probably good metaphor in that too.
Yeah. Yeah. And now that we know better, we do better. And so having them all together is how the rest of them will end up. They'll all be within a byte, hopefully, so they can all stay together forever on chain, which is kind of the goal.
Yeah, 100%. Is there, I want everyone, I love Stephen Miller, and I always never like to bump too much into the show. Chip and I like Chip, honestly, I could talk to you for like 14 hours and I think we'd still be like, wait, have we covered everything? But I definitely want to have you on the show again, because with you, like, obviously we want to talk about the Sheeple and the art and the projects you're working on right now, but there's so much of a rich history. Like, your life is embodied in these sheep, but also just in Bitcoin mining and your ranch and so much of this. Is there anything before we part ways on this session about the Sheeple, or is there anything else you'd want people to kind of know or think about just about the sheep or the collection or whatever?
I mean, no, like I think we've covered lots for today. It's kind of just great, like slowly, like I enjoy that people are enjoying it. It's nice. I enjoy the comments I get from people about what they like and what they don't like, and seeing what people want to see in sheep too, because it's always, I've gotten some constructive ideas that for the next couple ones that I want to work on. And yeah, that looks good when you zoom in like that. Holy man.
Yeah, let's see if it went over to the other pages or I have to do it one by one. No, it totally worked.
This one was definitely one of the hardest ones so far.
What number was this? Was this number 4 or number 2?
Oh, this was the last one I put on.
So is it fair to say, are you, you started simpler, not simpler, but for the kids, you were sketching, you were having more fun with laser eyes.
Yeah.
And now that you're getting into like different shading and you're really finding what this means to you.
Challenge.
Yeah, are they going to keep getting longer, or have you kind of, for this collection, you found that compromise of where the detail goes?
I don't know, because I thought I was being clever with, I'll go back to this piece to show you again. I thought I was being clever with the way I drew this out, and it turns out this is way more complex. But I like wanted to give this gal lots and lots of hair.
Oh wow.
And
oh my
it
gosh.
actually takes a lot. It's taking a lot of work and time getting that all drawn in.
So you're almost like decision by
finished.
decision, you're like, I'm going to do what's right. And for her, as you got into it, doing the hair more and more felt like the right thing to do. So you're not putting a time constraint on it, like you said, but on our pre-show, you're not a big TV guy. I'm not a big TV guy, but you take to the arts, obviously hang out with your family, and you just continue honing your craft, and you're creating, you're not consuming all the time.
Yeah, and they'll be done when they'll be done. Like, this is why I made that one post the one time saying the biggest stress factor for me is knowing that, like, at any given point here, the mempool might just shoot back up and I won't get these on chain as form makers. And so that keeps me constantly drawing consistently. And so there's that little bit of stress, but at the same time, I refuse to stop short of at least them being finished in my wife's eyes, because my wife is quite often the one to call it quits for me, because I would keep going infinity because it never seems finished.
Right.
Like, the pieces never seem like this one.
Yeah.
This one isn't finished, but that's intentional as well. Like, like the amount of time it took to get here was already so much. And there's a bit of a metaphor that, like, because this is a self-reflective like drawing, this is like, I was explaining to Stephen actually one time that this is a self-portrait, essentially, is the way I thought of this and came up with this concept. And so one of the layers of this is that, like, it's unfinished because the work we're doing on ourselves is always unfinished as well. We can always be improving and getting better. So I intentionally decided that is the statement I'm making by making it obvious that it's unfinished.
Yeah, and the unfinished aspect of this, or I assume this is part of the unfinished side here.
Yeah.
I didn't notice it until you brought it up, but it adds a certain beauty to it. Because, like, if you didn't say that, I would be like, to me, it's finished because it's on chain. Like, of course it's finished. But now that you mention it, like, it's not. And now to me, it's almost like it's that much cooler. You're like, hey, I've got life to live. I've got life to fill in. And that's just how it goes.
Yeah. And so that's just one of those many ideas I was thinking of. I was like, this is, whereas this is, oh man, like the shading I could have done on his left shoulder. I could have done that shading forever. Like, as I was working down from the collar down, I just kept going and changing the lighting on how it worked. But I just eventually was like, I think this is fine. Like, I didn't even go back to the right shoulder. As you can see, it's still closer to the original sketch out, more plain lines. Whereas
Yeah.
on the left side, yeah.
I like it because it goes from the head is so detailed, and as the body, as it works, is as the body goes away to the white, it's slowly dissipating. Like, it's borderless. Yeah. It can't be defined, and it's just cool because it sounds like your wife is a great pair for you. And she knows when to help you call it quits when it's getting too intense or too crazy. But hats off to you too for also being able to, a lot of people get OCD and they can't quit. And you're like, you know what? There's beauty in the unfinished. And I would agree. Now that I know this, I'm like, these pieces take on, to me, so much more depth and meaning, because not because there's a story behind it, but just because, like, life is, there's time in life, and we have families, we have all sorts of stuff, and at some point it's time to walk away from this and move to the next thing or things. You know what I mean? And that's just how life doesn't always finish in perfect complete orbits, or however we look at it.
No, and being a father, how that is. Like, there's just some things that are more important in life as well. Like, there are just times when it's like, I would rather be spending time with my kids, doing things. I'll share, I think I shared this online, but did I do, where I have a piece, I've roughly sketched out and shared all of the remaining 6 pieces, and it's just, but only glimpses of them.
Are they on Chip's timeline?
Yeah, they'll be on my timeline, and eventually people will see all the finished pieces. But here's one that's in early stages, just to show you an idea of what it looks like.
Oh, I love that one. That one's definitely got Ordinals like vibes. I mean, it's got the hoodie. It's, the hoodie. We love or hate the hoodie. It is the PFP
Essential.
trait. It
Yeah.
is the essential PFP trait. Can you show that again? Because I
Yeah.
just want to look at it again. I love that. Oh yeah, that's so cool. I love it. Like hoodie, and you chose this one. He is directly facing you, so it's like this he's got a little mystery, but he's got a little tude. He's got the wisdom in his eyes. The with the cloak on. It's so cool.
I think it's going to be a very different. For example, I'll show you. This is a piece I shared with some friends. I've got I'm just trying to put all the layers on that make it so you can see some of the concepts. This is not, I was just messing around with textures and styles, but it's going to be dark like this once
Oh
I add all my
wow.
details.
It almost reminds me of like I don't have OMB, but I've always appreciated them and what that whole project did. But there's like the hoodies and then like the shadow hoodies. Like I think Snoop was telling me all about the different kind of monikers and stuff. But it's super
Yeah, the
cool to
subgroups.
to kind of see that. Yeah, absolutely. Um,
Yeah.
well, Chip, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was awesome. Like we could talk sheeple, we could talk not sheeple. I could just zoom in to 2000%, and we could literally, I could look at it in each line and shade. I could be like, let's talk about where were you there? You'd be like, well, I was in the barn, and
Oh, the crazy. Yeah, it's a very crazy life for sure. When I look back at, what's funny is we didn't even talk about like one that people often want to go into is like rodeo. I used to rodeo when I was young. I
oh,
did a
no
lot of
kidding.
my wife put a stop to that, but I did rodeo for a long time. Like we could talk forever, but we'll save that for another day. I think that
Yeah, we'll save it for another day. Well, Chip, I appreciate your time. That was absolutely an honor and a pleasure walking through this with you, with all the shared stories we have from the early Ordinals days, but also just, the sheeple. There's a lot of cool artwork on Ordinals, but this collection, I know you agree, but it's truly special. And whatever you do with it, I'm here for it, and it will be the right decision. And it's just so cool that thank you for sharing and putting this artwork out in the world for us to see, so we could talk about it.
well, I really appreciate it. Thank you. I'm glad. I'm glad you enjoy it. I'm glad everybody else so far is enjoying it, and I can't wait to be a little further down the road. I think we're going to probably see some of it, maybe even in Vegas. So it'll be fun.
Oh, exciting. Well, I'll definitely see you in Vegas. I know you and I will talk before then, but thank you, Chip. Take care, everybody. This was the Blue Node Lounge with
Nice.
Chip and the awesome Sheeple, where we talked about Canada, life, and a whole bunch of censor. Oh, we didn't even hit censorship either. We forgot about that
Nope.
one. We're
Another
gonna get
day.
we're gonna get there next time. We're gonna talk about culture and how everything's evolving. But yeah, I'll see you in Vegas on Thursday, everybody. I'm having Proper on from, I believe that's Ancora Art, who works with Ordinally and those guys. So that'll be a super fun show. Next week is Ordinally next week. We've got some really good guests coming up. I got to look now. But Chip, take care, and take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Take care, guys.